Hi, Dominic here. Listen, I'm recording this extra little bit because we made a mistake in the episode. We mentioned a date for an upcoming training that you might be interested in. And in the show, we say November 25th. Now that's American Thanksgiving. So that's not going to work. So here's what we're going to do. At every place where we mention the date incorrectly, we're going to insert a bell or a chime. And what I'm also going to do is now hold the information call for North America on November 22nd and November 26th for Australia. The way to get in touch with us, if you're interested in those, is through the Facebook group. So you can do it through Cabinetmaker Profit System page or the Contractor Strategy Group page or the Profit Toolbelt page. Or you can text me and I will be telling my mobile number throughout the episode, so I won't do it again here. But watch for that, and my apologies for any confusion. Thanks very much, folks. Enjoy the episode. Ric Ptak, how are you?
I'm great, Dom.
I feel like you're a regular guest here on the show, Cabinetmaker Profit System.
Well, you seem to be putting the coffee on, and I keep coming back to have those great cups of coffee with you. So that's great.
Virtual coffee.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Well, it is great. I mean, you're the expert on something that's a gap for just so many people. Today, we're here to talk about the foreman, although you've got tons of experience on the lean manufacturing, continuous improvement. Hey, Ric, for those of you, the people who haven't met you before, let me open with my standard opening line. Ric Ptak, who the heck are you? And how is it you come to be talking to woodshop owners about running their business and their floor operations a bit better?
Right. Well, I'm a cabinet maker by trade. Picked up my trade in the early 80s from a European cabinet maker by the name of Fleming Matson. So, I've got the old world teaching and training, come along from that. And I just came up through the ranks, was a floor person, bench person for a long time, and then was handed the reins of foremanship, supervisory position. And, even though I knew my trade, I knew woodworking, didn't really know very much about
leading people,
how to supervise people, how to lead people. Some people call it how to manage people. So I came up through the ranks and just sort of got my feet wet and learned by the school of hard knocks. Really, most of it. Did something wrong that didn't work. Sometimes somebody left because you made them upset, and you learn from that. And unfortunately, I learned that way, but I would want to pass off a lot of my knowledge now, and I have been doing that in the last 10, 15 years, trying to avoid some of that and trying to give supervisors and leaders the right tools in their toolbox, so to speak, on their tool belt, so that they, don't have to go through those same errors that I did. And just some really good pointers and some, how to empower people. How do you supervise them? How do you lead them, coach them, mentor them? So that's kind of my background, just learning that and being and living it and understanding it, and then passing the knowledge off to others.
You certainly live it, because ever since I've known you, you're always learning something. You're always advanced. When I first, and people on the who are listening maybe don't know this, but I originally met Ric when you were the president of the local chapter of a Architectural Millwork Association, and I think I called you up out of the blue and said, "Hey, I can speak on some topics. Do you need a speaker?" And Ric was kind enough to say, "Yeah, if you've got something of value." And so we met that way, and but ever since then, you've now gone on, and inside of that Architectural Woodwork Association, you now have more certifications, and you've got a background in continuous improvement. Mm-hmm. You run marathons. What don't you do?
Well, I mean, if it interests me, I do it, and I'm sure interested in teaching and training others and passing off my knowledge, whether it's woodworking skills or whether it's supervisory and leadership skills, whether it's continuous improvement or lean, tools that you can apply in woodshop and any manufacturing situation or administrative service position. I mean, it works anywhere, so it's just it's just I love dealing with folks who want to improve and want to learn and have an open mind. So
forward facing, that's what I call them. Forward facing business owners who are open to, and the funny thing is, the interesting thing is that the people who listen to this show are amongst the finest leaders in their market, in their city, because this show's available to everybody. It's no secret. Podcasts are free, right? So they better be good, because otherwise, it's worth what you paid for it. But everybody has the opportunity to listen to them, but only the people that really are ready and willing to learn new things. Even if it's one little thing, they're the people who choose to listen to this show or whichever show they choose.
Well, exactly. They take time out of their busy schedule to learn something new, or, hopefully they can pick up a tidbit here and there and then apply it to their own situation to become, more efficient, more effective, better quality product, safer, keeping costs down and getting more production out the door. I mean, those are the things that we're all concerned about, right?
Yeah. Well, that's actually what we're here to talk about today. The topic I have written down for you and I to discuss and sort of shine the light on, if we're looking through a multi-paned window into a shop, there's multiple panes. We can talk about estimating. We could talk about winning jobs. We could talk about drafting and engineering. We could talk about running the CNC. We could talk all the way down to delivery and installation and customer service. But today, what we're talking about is the foreman, woodshop leadership and management. So if you have a foreman in your shop, or if you are the foreman in your shop and you want to understand how to fine tune that a little bit better for yourself or for somebody else, I think we're going to put down some good content for you today.
Right. So, we look at that term, foreman, supervisor. I mean, I like the supervisor term a bit better. But a lot of times a good bench person, a really good, sharp person gets sort of handed the reins of supervisory position.
Sounded like that
without really any additional training, without any additional courses or anything. You may have learned your trade really well from a journeyman cabinet maker or a woodworker who's got a wealth of experience. But we don't really get that additional human, how to deal with people, right? And really, a supervisor, when you think about it, gets results through people. I mean, they don't, if you become the supervisor, you're not doing all the work yourself. You now have to supervise and lead and coach and mentor the rest of that team that's on the floor or out in the field, or even, up in the front admin side. If we talk about engineering, project management, I mean, that's all a big team of folks. It's not us versus them. It's not the front end versus the back end, the engineering staff versus the floor people, the manufacturing side. So when you think about it, managing, yes, we manage things. I always like to make this distinction, Don. I don't manage people, or we shouldn't think of it as that we manage people. We manage things like schedules, like infrastructure, like equipment maintenance, bringing in, getting supplies here on time, making sure the shop drawings are ready for, handing off to the shop personnel. But when I talk about people, we mentor, we coach, we lead them. Okay, we're not managing them.
It's a different thing.
We have to lead them, and I always like to make that distinction because it's important. Because you want to get results through people, you want to respect folks, you have to show them and empower them on what they need to do to work better and work more efficiently. So that's what I like to say, leadership. We have to lead folks. Yeah. So we have to be a good leader. So what does that mean? So Ric, that means that we need to know what a leader is.
Let me interrupt you for a second. Because you mentioned something interesting, even in your own bio, when you were working at Fleming Madsen's shop. How big was that shop, by the way?
I think there was about, wasn't terribly big. There was probably 10 to 15 folks.
Oh, okay. It was a good size shop.
Good size, you know. We did our own, we made our own veneer, and we pressed our own sheets, and then we from the sheets we cut everything, and then we manufactured architectural millwork, basically doors, door frames, lawyers' offices, hospitals, schools. So it was a lot. So
there's a lot there.
Yeah.
But how often do you see that an owner walks through the shop and says, "Hey, Ric, you're really good on the bench. Let's make you the foreman," and thinks the same skills that help you produce quality cabinetry that you can be proud of are the same skills to help you lead people? How often does that happen? Somebody just gets blessed and moved and they don't have the skills.
Well, I think that happens probably north of 90% of the time,
happened to me
95% of the time.
Yeah.
So it's like, and all of a sudden the owner thinks that because you're a good woodworker, good bench person, that you would make a great supervisor. And well, maybe you would, but maybe you're not, because you don't have those skills.
Yeah. I should stop here for a second. I think that anybody listening to this who wants we've got different names for this: supervisor, foreman, floor leader, whoever you've got leading your manufacturing operations, like right at the coal face. I'd suggest they listen to this episode, because we're going to be digging even deeper into this manager versus leader and leading people thing. And, I was never a leader of a wood shop, but I was doing well in my job, and somebody said, "Hey, you'd be a good leader of this crew." And so suddenly I was the leader of that crew. And leading and doing are two different things.
Yeah.
It's what they call soft skills.
Yeah, some people use the term soft skills, and there's a lot of it is, how confident are you? How great of a communicator are you? Are you, how level-headed are you? When things are going wrong, can you maintain a cool head and try to work through things with the folks around you, and use those people who are good at those areas and ask them, what do you think we should do? You're engaging the folks. So being a great communicator is really one of the main keys. And then keep communicating with them, and keep them engaged, and let them know that you trust them, then empower them as required. So you're not going to empower somebody if you're not confident that they know how to do something.
Sure.
But if you're confident that they can handle it, then empower them, and then have their back, and then say, "Hey, look, I've got you on this. If something goes wrong, we'll deal with it together," type of thing, right? So that those are some of the things that make a good leader or a great leader, right? And really, we need to always be communicating with our folks if we're a leader. I think we need to let each worker know how he or she is doing. We need to give credit when credit is due. We need to tell people in advance about things that are going to affect them, right? And then, we just need to make the best use of each person's ability, and then apply it that way in a situation. So communication is one of those things that I think is key.
Yeah.
So you have to be a great communicator, and you have to be a great communicator under stress. Because remember, when you become a supervisor, you walk that fine line between ownership and upper management.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you also have to relay that information down to the folks. But the way it was delivered to you is probably not the same way you're going to deliver it to your folks.
That's right. Yeah, it has to be changed
on the job site.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because the role of the supervisor, floor leader, foreman, whatever we're calling it, and however we run our shops, I would expect that person comes into my office once in a while and says, "Hey, Rubino, we need this, or we need that, or we got to fix this or that." And that's behind closed doors with me, right?
Sure.
But I would also expect that same supervisor goes down on the shop floor and says, "Hey, crew, we need this, we need that, this has to change." And it's an interesting and unique perspective where that person's got to be dropping the truth in the way that people need to hear it on both sides, in the office with the owner, and on the shop floor, the manufacturing floor, installations, whatever you might be doing. But at the face of the work, you've got to be delivering that message in a different way to two different groups. And so somebody who's overly worried about being everybody's friend,
oh yeah,
that's not
that was one of the things that I had to learn by the School of Hard Knocks. You're on the floor as a bench person, you've got buddies, and then the next day you're handed the supervisory position, and now you have to kind of pull that away. You can't be everybody's friend, Yeah. So it's a hard distinction to make sometimes, but you have to kind of put yourself in that different position. It's a different perspective, right? And you have to say, look, I need you to do this, and you may not like it, but that's the way it is. That's what the ownership wants. That's what the customer wants. And really, it's always going to be about the customer, and there's a lot of customers when we talk about the whole value chain of things, but the external customer, of course, is the one that pays the bill, that has contracted you to build whatever it is that you're building and installing and supplying. But we have internal customers too.
Right.
And as a supervisor, as a leader, your internal customers, of course, are your team, who the people who you're leading and coaching and mentoring. So you have to deliver to them, a service. That is, that you treat them with respect. They're going to treat you with respect, that you hold them in high regard, that you're always going to be level-headed, or, as much as possible, and, within the context. And so that's the type of thing that we have to think about when we become leaders, when we become supervisors and we're coaching others.
There's so many aspects that, I want to say, what's the first thing that you need to do if you've just become a floor leader, a supervisor? But I don't think that's the right question, because almost nobody listening has just become the supervisor. But let's say that you're a supervisor who wants to up your game. You want to be a better leader on the floor from where you are now, wherever that is. Where do you think that should start? What should that person do?
Well, I think it's important to have the expectation from the ownership to understand what the culture is. So the expectations from the owners of the company, they may want you to have certain jurisdiction on what you're responsible for, and that's going to be different in every different situation, right? If the ownership expects me to be in charge of equipment maintenance, for instance, then I need to know that, if I have the backing from ownership, that if something breaks down, I can pick up the phone and get that thing fixed as quickly as possible. Because sometimes cost doesn't matter so much. It's about the speed of which I can get it repaired or get the parts flown in. So if that's my responsibility, then I need to know that I'm empowered to do that as the supervisor. If it's not my job to do that, then I need to know, who do I get a hold of? Right. It's an external person that I can get a hold of, that person, so we can get that piece of equipment repaired as quickly as possible, so that we can get the production rolling again. So I think it's important that the supervisor or the leader sits down with ownership and just, list those areas of responsibility. It can be in point form, or bullet form, right, on a piece of paper.
So areas of their own.
For this, you're responsible for this, but you're not responsible for instance, if somebody comes to you and asks for a raise, you're going to divert them to the owner, right?
Right.
Or you might be given that responsibility. So you have to figure that out, right? It depends. So I think that's a great place to start. Once you've got those things set, then you might want to say, okay, based off of this list, where are my personal skills at? Am I really good at this, or do I need some help? And it's okay to ask for help. Actually, a sign of a true leader is knowing their limits and saying, you know what, I'm not so great in communication. I need some help with that. I'll need some courses.
Even the president of the country has advisors. They can't know everything about military and the economics and farming and international trade. They have people who specialize in that, and they call on them so the best leaders have wise counsel. And so if I'm a leader, I need to have, I'm speaking now as the owner, my wise counsel might be my bookkeeper or financial person, my floor leader. I keep wanting to say foreman. I'm going to keep saying foreman, right? You're going to know how old I am. But that's my wise counsel. And the foreman probably has to have counsel as well. Maybe their counsel is the person running the spray booth, the lead installer. Their other wise counsel is the owner, and maybe purchasing. We've got to have those teams. It sounds like a lot of this comes down to communication.
It's always about communicating clear expectations, and what you expect from others and what others expect from you. Right? You just talked about, having a job relation with the installer, having a job relation with your finisher or edge bander operator or CNC operator and so on. So those are important, that we can establish those expectations, and then we know what we expect from everybody. And then we can move forward about, getting the actual quality out the door to the customer, what they're expecting, doing it in a timely fashion so that it's on time, doing it within the budget, and doing it safely, right? So there's a lot of things to juggle in the air, right? Quality, safety, keeping costs down, and getting the production out the door in a timely fashion so that the customer is happy, the external customer. And we also want to ensure that the internal customers they're getting what they need as well. Because if I'm being supervised by somebody and I'm not getting those expectations, if I'm not feel I'm being empowered in the things that I know I can handle on my own, we have this term called micromanaging. Everybody's always coming, every couple of minutes and checking. Like, then I don't feel like we have a good relationship, and I don't know if that's really the company. I don't know if that's the culture that I'm going to continue working in. So I may look elsewhere, and that's the sad thing about it. When people leave, and they're good people leave, and then we don't really know why, or they tell us, I'm making $1 more an hour.
But the reason they looked is,
but most of the time it's got nothing to do with the money. It's because I can't get along with my supervisor. I don't feel I'm being empowered. I'm not getting the right things from the supervisor, the leader, right? So that's really what it boils down to. And the better communicator you are, the more you know your people, you're going to have this bond, and then you're going to understand them, and they're going to understand you.
Yeah. Now, Ric, you've laid up veneers. I've never laid up veneers, but I'll bet you could walk by somebody who is doing layups and see where they are in the process, and maybe where some problems are coming with end grain matching or whatever it is, right? But you'd be able to walk by and not necessarily have to talk to the person running that bench to know where they're at. And so let me ask this as a question instead of saying it. What would you look for that made you say, I think it's time for me to lean in and have a little chat with Jack?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, if you see something that isn't quite right, I think you need to address it. But then you have to address it in the correct fashion, right? Obviously, you don't want to call somebody out in front of somebody else. So you might want to have a little private, discussion, around the corner.
Yeah.
If there's nobody else around, then just have a respectful conversation about, what you think needs to happen differently, or I don't think we're hitting the mark here on this match. I don't think this is quite what the customer expectation is. Let's just grab that control sample again and just have a look at it. And then you discuss it. Maybe you're having trouble with the veneer that you have the flitch, and that's the best match that you're going to get.
Right.
And then you have to have that conversation and say, I'm not sure if the customer is going to accept this. Maybe we need to rethink this now, because there's no point in making, sheets and sheets of veneer if product that isn't going to be acceptable. So we need to stop the process when we feel it isn't going the way it should,
right,
and have a discussion about it. And, we can't be afraid to stop it and say, let's just rethink this. Let's just make sure that we're doing the right thing before we move forward.
I don't know where this fits in the conversation, but the story you just told, or the example you just gave me, I was working with a company, and I thought everything was running tickety-boo on the floor. And so we start our coaching meeting. I didn't meet these guys every 2 weeks. So there's, we're in a groove of talking to each other, and they're like, Dom, we just made an entire kitchen out of white melamine. It was supposed to be white oak. The guy just didn't read the second word. He just read white, and he pulled the material onto the CNC. It went. And nobody questioned it, even though the plans say white oak. And now what have you got sitting at the back of the shop? A perfectly made budget product.
We've got something for a garage sale or a reduced fire sale.
Oh, yeah. But the frustration in the owner.
Yeah.
And where, let's make that a little case study here. Actually, and Ric, in a second, you and I are going to talk about something else that's upcoming, which is training for foremen or floor leaders or supervisors. Sure. We should probably land on a word here, but let's say that had happened. I'm the owner of the company, and I come to you and go, hey, Ric, we just made an entire kitchen out of white melamine. It was supposed to be white oak. So we're into it for hours. We're into it for materials. Yeah, the thing's made perfectly, but it's the wrong material.
Wrong material.
I know there's a lot of assumptions in this, but what would you do as the foreman of that crew? What actions would you take?
Well, I think once all the blaming and the yelling and screaming of that's the culture of your shop, happens, because you can do all you want. You can blame somebody else. You can yell and scream all you want.
But that thing's sitting at the back door.
When that's all done,
yeah,
we still have a unit that is the wrong material.
Yeah.
So now we say, okay, what went wrong in our process There's got to be something that went wrong in our process that allowed this to happen. So we need to get to the root cause. And I think that's when we talk about leadership, one of the things that a good leader will do is to understand what the root cause is. And they may get some of their own, their team members in and say, let's develop what the root cause was of this problem.
Yeah.
Let's address it. And then let's fix the process so that the next time we give them the same set of circumstances, this isn't going to happen again. Right.
So
now, if you have a clear process in place and a person just did a mistake, then it's a matter of, we have to look at the training. Do we have the right training in place? Is that person competent? Or did we throw them in there because we were overworked? We just threw them in there and they made an error and they weren't really trained properly. So again, it's a root cause analysis problem. Let's go down.
I know there's a lot of assumptions in this, but let's go down. Let's say the guy's name is Jack, because I used the name Jack earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Jack was where we think it started, in that he didn't read the plans, or he didn't read, all the stickers that came off that said, this is what we're going to cut. How, and I'll be Jack. What would you do? Because you don't want to call Jack out. You don't want Jack to feel like, you don't want everybody seeing that Jack made a mistake. You might actually want to downplay it a bit, but you still want me to know the message. What would that look like, if you don't mind? Even I'm up even for a bit of a role play.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if Jack was the one that pulled the wrong material, and I'm assuming depending on how the shop's set up, somebody pulls material and sets it in front of the beam saw or the CNC router.
Right.
And then the next person that gets it, the next internal customer gets it, is the person cutting it. They also had to have made an error in not reading.
Whoever pulled
cutting the wrong material, right?
Yeah.
And let's say that person cut it and it went on to the edge bander operator. Now the edge bander operator also missed it, because there's got to be labels, there's got to be paperwork that says I should be edging white birch, not white melamine. So we have a fundamental problem in this scenario that you're painting, that it went all the way through. I can't imagine it's one person that cut it, built it, edged it, built it.
Well, no, you're right. In this particular shop,
there's got to be a multitude of folks there that somehow we missed the critical wording there of what the material should have been.
Yeah.
Again, it's a root cause analysis that's really going to bear that out, but we have to be beyond the yelling and the screaming and blaming. To do a proper root cause analysis, we have to be in a no blame environment. We say, look, what happened in the process? Can we improve the process? So given the same set of circumstances, this is not going to happen again. What checks and balances do we need to put in place?
So would you have that as a
communication do we need?
Yeah. Would you have that as a group meeting, or would you pull Jack aside and then pull George aside? And how?
Well, first, if I'm doing it, I'd probably start with Jack, ask him what he thinks went wrong. What would he do to improve the situation? If it was his call to say, how do we improve it? Get input from him. How do we improve the process? He may have a very good idea that says, oh man, we should do that.
Yeah.
But, before you do it, go to the next person down the line, the edge bander. If that's Jane, say, Jane, see what happened here. You edged this material. Obviously, the edging should have been white birch edging, but we put PVC white melamine on it, and we didn't read the paperwork. So what do we need to do to change the process so we don't make sure that happens again? So again, it's very calm, and you need to have time for that. You need to find the root cause. A lot of shops, you'll know this, and I know this too, Dom. They do something wrong. There's rework that has to happen. You work overtime and you just fix it, but they never do a root cause analysis. So they never fix the process. So it could happen again because they feel oh, that's a waste of time. It's done wrong anyway. We just have to make it again. Yes, I know you have to make it again, and maybe you have to do it with overtime hours. But yes, you have to step back and say, can we improve the process?
Yeah.
Because if you don't improve the process that time, it's going to happen 3 months down the road or 6 months down the road again.
Yeah, in a different way or in a different place.
Start really costing you money.
Yeah. Ric, this whole foreman / supervisor training thing it's a big deal. We've got right now, it's difficult to find new people, and we want to keep the people we've got. We want to lead the people we've got. We still have to run a business profitably so that we can pay our people and
I hear there's a supply chain shortage.
Oh, did you hear that?
So you're probably saying there's a supply chain shortage of good supervisors and leaders as well.
There's a good supply chain shortage.
So the answer to that is then you have to build from within. Because if you think you're going to hire a great supervisor or leader from the outside, chances are, if they're good, they're going to be busy and working already for somebody else. So you need to build from within. And that's really what we're talking about here. And I think we want to start chatting to the folks about the upcoming training that we're going to be hosting, right? So that's about taking people from within and building them into leaders.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more, especially because the people within already get the culture. They understand the little things, the nuances of what makes Ric's shop, and how we do what we do and who our perfect customer is. And geez, even how that machine works as part of our process. They just get it. So yeah, you and I are hosting an information call. If anybody's interested in joining us for a foreman training, when was the last one we ran, Ric?
Well, I think we did it in April, in the spring of this year, late winter or spring.
Yeah, I'm already thinking it was last year, but that's right. It just seems long ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very well attended. Very well attended. So we're doing another one. The date for the next one is January 18th of 2022. Mm-hmm. So that's when we're going to start that off. How many sessions are we running in that training, Ric?
We're running 6 sessions, and it's 6 1-hour sessions once a week.
Right.
So yeah, so that's how it's structured.
Yeah. And you put together a workbook, a guided workbook that people print off and have it on hand at all times.
And we work through that workbook. Then you've got it. There's a few exercises to help you, kind of cement the knowledge that of the week that you just picked up or the session you just picked up. There's a bit of homework.
Right.
Then you have it as a reference. After the course is over, you can refer back to it. What did Ric talk about that one time about? Oh, it was something about. He said something about root cause analysis, or what was that? You can look that up and kind of get a refresher course on it, and it's there as a perfect reference for you.
The other nice thing about that is, we only have room for 6 companies in the training because there's only one Ric to go around, but you get to hear what the other 5 companies are doing, because so often we're kind of in a silo, right? Like you think about your current foreman. He wakes up in the morning, he or she wakes up in the morning, they jump in the truck, they drive to the shop, they do the work they do, and they drive home. Maybe they coach their kids baseball or take their daughter to dance or whatever it is, right? But you're in a silo. You're not seeing other shops. You're not hearing how other supervisors are supervising, or the challenges they have, or just the little human nuances of how to lead a team. And I think that's one of the things, because I sit in on the trainings as well. I really appreciate hearing people, just the interaction.
Yeah, just networking with peers who are, trying to do the same thing you're doing, getting results through people. How do we coach? How do we mentor? How do we respect them? How do we deal with situations that maybe we don't have the information on how to deal with it, and we can learn from each other, obviously. We always have to have our listening ears on. I talked about, a foreman or a supervisor or a leader, being a great communicator, but part of communication is, listening, being a great listener as well, right? So
yeah, what was that? Sorry.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. As one of my clients said when I was talking about listening, he goes, "Yes, I'd love a sandwich." I was like, "What? What?" So that's his standard joke, I guess, he uses with his wife when she says something to him. He's like, "Yes, I'd love a sandwich." Yeah. And apparently she gets very upset when he does. All right. So we have an information call coming up November 25th. The training is going to start on January 18th. I'm looking through my notes here. There's only room for 6 companies, but each company, Ric, can bring 3 people.
Right.
So our intent is the owner, their foreman or supervisor, and maybe one extra person if they've got, every company is a little bit different, but who are the 3 people that they would bring? And the intent here is to keep the class small, right? Not to have it huge where everybody's talking over top of each other.
We need the decision makers there. So the owners or the upper managers, and upper supervisors, and then we need, the floor person, the floor leader there, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's important that the decision maker is there too, because then they can hear what the expectations should be and how the floor leader needs to conduct themselves, or some of the skills they need to acquire. And that's really what the 25th of November sort of intro is going to be about, right?
Yeah.
We want to sort of outline what you're going to be learning those 6 weeks, right? So we're going to go through what the course content is, the sort of the highlights of the, what you're going to be getting, right? We're going to leak that out to you so that you get a sense of what the course is going to help you to achieve. What tools are you going to be getting?
Yeah. Gee, Ric, you've got such a depth of knowledge. I mean, people who've listened to the podcast for a long time know that you also run the lean manufacturing training for this whole ecosystem we've got going on. But one of the cool things that's happening, I don't think you and I ever expected it. We're not only running this course in North America, but for the first time now, we're running it in Australia too.
Right. Yeah. That's neat.
Isn't it? Isn't that great?
What does that tell us? It tells us that these skills, these soft skills, how to deal with folks, people need those, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world. It doesn't really even matter what language you speak. We need those skills, because think about it, people are the ones that are going to be doing the work, and somebody needs to be leading them to make sure that they're all pulling in the same direction, that the quality is met for the client, that we're doing it in a timely fashion, that the schedule is being met, we're doing it at cost, we're not running huge overruns on costs, and we're getting production out the door, and we're doing it safely. So those are the responsibilities of the leader.
Yeah.
And then they need to be empowering the folks that are on the team they all work in the same, they're all pulling that cart up the hill, together in the same direction.
Yeah. One of my clients actually came up with this saying, I can't even take credit for it, but for confidentiality, I can't say his name. But he said, I'm starting to understand, Dom. And he, by the way, he did the SWIFT assessment with you, but I'm starting to understand my people are my tools.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're a benchman, a bench person, you're assembling cabinets or installing them, you've got your tool belt or your box of tools. But when you become a leader, the people become the tools. You've got a finisher. That's one of the tools in your belt. You have an installer. That's one of the tools in your belt. You have an assistant, a helper. You've got a purchaser. It's a different thing. And it needs another level of training, right? Another layer.
And I often say this, and when I do the more in-depth training with folks, is to say, what comes with that piece of equipment when you buy it? Usually a manual on how you maintain it.
Right. Yeah.
But when we hire folks, when we inherit, folks on the floor that we have to lead, we don't get a maintenance manual with each person. So as a leader, in your head, you have to assemble for each person a maintenance manual. You want to treat everybody with respect, but folks, they take things differently. So you have to know how to speak to Dom versus, as opposed to speaking with Garrett, for instance, right? So you have to treat people, you treat them the same, but you may speak to them differently. You may deliver the message differently to motivate them, to empower them, to help them grow, So everybody has their own pace, their own speed, right? But if you do it in a respectful manner, in a no blame environment, I always say, take the high road. There's less traffic up there. because then you're always coming from that calm, respectful way, and then people are going to respect you for that, and you're going to look towards you to help them, right, and going and doing better at their jobs, right.
It's interesting that you say that, because I observed in the role play that not the role play, but when you said how you would speak to Jane on the edge bander or Jack at the bench, hey, I'll use Jane, the wrong edge tape was used on that white birch. So you talk right about the fact, the problem we had is this. You're not speaking about some global thing. You're saying that panel had the wrong edge on it, but the way you said it was factual, but not emotional. You weren't being in your tone.
Stick to the facts and deal with it in a calm way, because if people get their backs up, we become unreasonable. In my experience, folks are unreasonable, and rightly so, when they're upset, when they're angry.
Yeah.
So we need to calm them down first. Sometimes, if somebody's upset, I might say, hey, can we chat this afternoon at 2:00? I'll come by and we'll just talk about this. And now, you're going to give them a few hours. They're going to think about it. They're going to steam it off. And then you're going to come back and then you're going to come in a calm way. And then hopefully, they're going to mirror what you're doing, right? So we're not coming at it in an emotionally charged state anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, those are the kinds of things we're going to be running through in the training anyways. And Ric, I think, as you pointed out so nicely, leadership training is an ongoing thing. Right. But it's these little nuances and the ways of delivering them that I'm hoping people take away. So let me run through this one more time. Information call will be on November 25th. It's on Zoom. I think it's only an hour. Last time we didn't even need an hour for the
I think we held to an hour. Like I go through my notes pretty good and try to stay on track with the time. Yeah. And that allows for some share back from the folks too, or
true. Yeah. And on that information call, you actually run through the agenda, the course agenda. Week 1, this is what we're going to cover off. Week 2, boom, all the way through to week 6. And that's where we do the video and stuff but that's all outlined, what you're going to be learning. So there's no secrets. People come to the information call. The info call is free. And then you can see the agenda. And if it's your jam, if it's your thing, that's great. You can join us. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the information call is November 25th. That's for both North America and Australia, but we'll have different links for people to register. So if you're interested in joining us for this training, Ric is the host of the training. The registration links will be available in a bunch of places. Obviously on the Facebook groups. The Facebook group for us here is Cabinet Maker Profit System. And it's also, if you're a member of Contractor Strategy Group, I'll make sure it's posted in there. If you're not on those Facebook groups, you can just text me. And so, folks, I know you've heard my cell phone number before, but I'll say it again. It's 604-837-8361. And just send me the word leader or foreman or whatever you choose for your internal language. And then I'll know to have my office send you back the information for logging in. There's a cost for the course, as you would imagine, but there isn't for the information call. So join us on the information call and understand the value of what Ric's bringing for those 6 weeks. But the course, we're pricing it the same way we did before. And we'll talk about that on the call. And I think that's it. Mm-hmm. Did I miss anything?
Covered it all.
Yeah.
It's basically the 25th of November intro to what this is all about. We're going to cover off what the course content is, and as you said, Dom, every week there's an objective. So we'll cover off, we'll highlight what the objective is going to be for every week. Just like if you're going to go to a meeting, I want to have the agenda beforehand so that I'm not wasting other people's time and I'm not wasting my time. We wanted to do the same with the folks that are going to listen in on the 25th of November, because we're all busy. Yeah. But if you carve out an hour of your time, we're going to learn what this, what the value is on this course, and there's a takeaway for everybody, on this thing. So I think it's great value, and there's always going to be a takeaway.
Perfect. Well, folks, if you do have questions, I know Ric is relatively active on the Facebook page for Cabinet Maker and for the CSG, Contractor Strategy Group page. So you can always reach out to him there. If you have questions, though, funnel them to me as well. Again, I'll say my cell because it's the easiest way to reach me, 604-837-8361. And shoot me a text, and then we'll get you whatever you need. Mr. Ric Ptak, thank you.
Well, thank you, Dom, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, folks, thank you very much. And a reminder that every time you heard a bell or a chime in the episode, it was where Ric and or I mentioned that we were going to have an information call on November 25th. Again, that won't work because that's American Thanksgiving. So the North American date for the information call will be November 22nd. And for the Australia call will be November 26th. And that's Australia date and time. We'll share those times with you when you contact us for information. And of course, we'll send you a PDF with the info so you can scan it and glance it and see if this is something that is right for you and your company and the leaders in your company right now. So I apologize for the confusion. Pretty cool that the business coach, who's Mr. Systems and Process, is messed up on this one. I'm sure you're giggling. Thank you. Let's do that together. The way to get in touch with me, my cell phone number, I've mentioned it numerous times. I'm not going to do it this time. But you can also reach us through any of the Facebook groups. Those are managed by myself and Dan Zambello. So we'll certainly pick up your message there. So on the group called Cabinet Maker Profit System on Facebook, also the Contractor Strategy Group, and also on Profit Tool Belt. And of course, you can contact us through the website as well if you have questions. We're not hard to find. If you're interested in doing this, I'm interested in talking to you and sending you the PDF so you can at least glance at that before you even register for the information call. Thanks very much, folks. My apologies for the mess up, but here we are fixing the mess up and onward and upward. Thanks, folks. Talk to you soon.